From the nation's capital, this is the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast with your host, Rob Snowhite.
Fished across each other for years on the Salmon River without a formal introduction. In this episode, we're going to talk to Kevin McKay to learn more about him and what it's like to live off the grid in Maine while being a UPS driver and fly fishing guide. This is episode 256 in the 11th year of the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. Major thanks goes out to Owen Lithgow Connor and his brother Marshall Connor, who drove down from Fredericksburg and helped me out on Saturday at the Fly Fishing and Wine Festival. We had a great crowd on Saturday and they were a big help, so I was able to talk to podcast listeners, customers, and just talk fishing with anybody that walked by. I want to thank the podcast listeners that brought me a bottle of bourbon. Unfortunately, I told my wife about it, so now I've got to share it. It was also great to meet some new people. Give Spangler Fly Fishing a follow on Instagram. On this podcast, we're going to learn about Kevin McKay of MaineFlyFish.com, and you can find him on Instagram at Maine Fishing Adventures. Be sure to stop by one of the booths that he'll be at either the Marlboro or Edison fly fishing shows in January of 2020. Give him a fist bump. Tell him you heard about him on the podcast. Are you wearing shorts today?
No.
Okay. All right, well, Kevin, let's get started. You want to introduce yourself? Tell us where you are literally and figuratively right now.
My name is Kevin McKay. I am sitting outside a Dunkin' Donuts, Dover, Foxcroft, Maine. I own Maine Fishing Adventures. I'm a master Maine guide, fly fishing guide. A master Maine guide in Maine is you can fish, you can hunt, fish, and wreck, but I don't do any of that. I'm also a UPS driver. That is why I'm sitting at a Dunkin' Donuts, so I'm closer to work, so I can have more time to do this podcast.
Excellent. All right, so Kevin, do you have a celebrity doppelganger that those listening out there in their cars or wherever they are today could picture you while they're driving or listening?
So it's funny that, so I've been, as a UPS driver, I do remote area, so I do like 200 miles a day.
What?
So I download different podcasts. So the last 2 days, I've been listening to all your podcasts, trying to see what your questions are. And I knew that was a question that would be coming. So I text my girlfriend yesterday. I asked her what she thought, because I don't think I have a lookalike. And she said a skinny Vin Diesel. That was Stace's suggestion, because I am bald. So
you are taller than him, hopefully. Isn't he like 5'4"?
Yeah, I'm 6 foot, so whoa. Yeah, I'm taller.
And I believe we have technically fished together, but on the other side of the river from each other.
At Salmon River?
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure, because you guys are there November-ish when we're there, so I'm pretty sure you guys do the lower fly.
Do a lower fly a lot, and it's I'm either with Stace and a couple other people, or my son.
Yeah, we fish together up there, I'm pretty sure. We've been across the river. And are you a native to Maine?
I've never lived anywhere else. I was born, I say that. My dad was a Vietnam vet. I think he was in Vietnam for a year, and he was stationed down by you. And I was born in Frederick, Maryland.
Not far off.
No, and then I think when I was 1, he got out of the Army and came back to Maine. He built a house in Herman, Maine, and that's where I grew up. And now they live in Carmel, Maine, which is basically the next town over. And I am now living on the river in Howland, Maine. So I live on the Penobscot River.
If we're going to throw a dart at Maine to hit that spot, where would it be?
Most people either know Portland, Maine, or Bangor, Maine. Portland is kind of like a small version of Boston. A lot of really good eateries, a lot of good striper fishing. Bangor, Maine, people have to travel through Bangor to get to Bar Harbor. A lot of people know Bar Harbor. So I am 30 minutes north of Bangor.
Your accent isn't as thick. Everyone always jokes that it's Bahaba, but you actually pronounce it a little more in depth.
Yeah, I don't have that down east Maine accent that a lot of people have, which is pretty cool when you do come across someone like that. How old am I? 49. A lot of like the older generation, you know, they have that accent, which is kind of neat.
We were up there once years ago. Actually, I've been to Maine twice, and it was the term like a yut instead of like yes or like a yut.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe is that it?
Something like that. Yeah,
right.
I don't say that.
And also in Maine, do you have a camp? Everyone we hung out with had a camp, like a separate little cabin for the weekends for fishing and hunting.
So I live in my camp.
Even better.
So I was building this camp to put clients in. Had some life changes, so I ended up moving into the camp. So I decided I didn't want to didn't have a mortgage anymore, and so I actually live in a camp. Stace and I live in the camp. It's kind of a house. I mean, but it's for most people it's a camp. It's, I think, 24 by 28. Has a loft, kitchen, living room, 2 bedrooms. But we live off the grid. So every morning I go out and I have to start a generator.
Wow. Indoor plumbing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we have indoor plumbing, but we draw our water from the river. So like right now we don't have running water, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!" It sounds worse to everyone else. For us, it's no big deal. I have 4 5-gallon jugs that I fill up. Like I got 2 in the back of my vehicle right now, and I'll fill them up at the UPS building. And we have flushing toilets. If we do bathe at home, it's a sponge bath, which is shocking how much water we actually use when we shower, because I can take a sponge bath with a gallon of water. But when when you take a shower, I don't know how many gallons you use, but you stand in there for a long time. When I'm taking a sponge bath, it's quick and let's get out. But what we do for running water and showering and bathing is we join a gym. So on a daily basis, we are at the gym. So it forces us to work out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's good. Summertime is great. We have solar. I have a very basic solar system. Probably again because I'm pretty cheap. That's again why we have no well and no electricity. But I've been there. I've been in debt up to my eyeballs. I prefer not to be, because then you have a lot more choices when you're not in debt up to your eyes.
Absolutely.
But so we have solar. We have what do we have? I think 6 batteries, 4 solar panels. This time of year, it doesn't work, so we just run everything off a generator. Summertime, it's great. If we're showering, we'll use a generator. So we have clients come with us. I give free lodging to clients. It's kind of unheard of. We built a bunkhouse that sleeps 4 people, and so we save the solar for at nighttime. A lot of people have those sleeping devices. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called. But
CPAPs.
Yeah, CPAPs. And so I make sure we have solar all night long. So it's good.
Fantastic. That's a pretty cool lifestyle.
It is. I mean, we enjoy it. Like I said, everyone's always like, when you getting running water, when you getting a well, when you getting power hooked up.
Our friend Zach grew up in New Hampshire. I think it was New Hampshire or Connecticut, with nothing. Like the dad built the house. It was 25 by 25. They had no kitchen. They had a little cooler or dorm fridge. And he said in the morning he'd have to tap the top of his aquarium to break the ice so he could feed his goldfish, which lived for 18 years because half the year was in suspended animation.
Really?
And then their dog, something happened, and they had to get one of those like homemade wheelchairs for it, like the wheels on the back. So the dad just cut a new front door into the house, and just, he had a pretty crazy growing up. He said his ear doesn't work because of the cold at night, damaged his eardrum.
Probably ear infections.
Yeah, That's Zach for you.
Well, we have so we have a refrigerator. Everything's propane. So we have a Yodel. It looks like a wood stove, but it's a gas wood stove. It's gas. We have a Renai hot water heater for the summertime, so that's gas refrigerator. So I mean, it's like normal living, except for everything's run off a generator.
Yeah, awesome. So how did you get into all of this, being a sort of a Maine mountain man dude?
Yeah, I don't know about a Maine mountain man. I mean, I always, like, as a kid, like, growing up, my parents would always go camping, fishing. My dad loved to troll. I mean, I grew up pretty much going to Joe Mary Lake. That's my childhood, going to Joe Mary Lake. I remember catching, the bait fish off the beach and building, little traps and putting the bait fish in it, and always fascinated by fish and always went fishing. But my dad loved to troll, and I always liked to cast, but I would fish with him, and always dreamt of, this adventure, like remote pond fishing, but I really didn't know, just finding these places to go fishing, but I never grew up that way. And my dad really never did. Always wanted to try bass. We'd always go once a year. We always did a little brook with, I can't remember the name of the brook right now, but in Carmel, they live now, there was a small brook, and we'd go over there, and you had to have, the what are they called, whoopie wills, the size of a mouse's ear. We'd go over and fish for brook trout with a worm and a spinner, and that was always fun. And then sometimes we'd actually hike down the brook, and that was always exciting. But I remember I was in my 20s, and I went over to my parents' house. My dad was sitting there looking at LL Bean catalog and an Orbis catalog.
I remember the good old days. This time of year, January, when all those catalogs would come in the mail.
It's still exciting. I mean, I try to do everything as much as I can with local fly shops, but I always like getting those, like the fly shop will send that big catalog.
Yeah. I just got the Jay Stockard one the other day. That's a nice one.
I just got that one. And then you go through, and then you go to your fly shops, and, I mean, that's how I use their catalogs. It's probably not how they want you to use their catalogs, and they were looking at, like I said, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, a guy at work talks about this remote pond that has monster brook trout in it, and he fly fishes, and he said he'll take me if, I get a fly rod. And he said at the time, Ella Bean down in Ellsworth, which is on the way to Bar Harbor, they were having a 50% off sale. So I'll go with you. So I went down and I bought a Streamlight reel and rod. Had never fly fished before. I think I picked up the whole thing for like $70, line and everything. And at that time, I was loading trucks at UPS, and the guy that I was loading trucks for, and I'd chat with him, and he said he fly fished. And he goes, I'll take you fly fishing. I'll take you April 1st. Because Maine season is typically it's April 1st to September 30th. That's our season for our wild fisheries. And then there's an extended season. Like I could go fishing today on my run if I wanted to stop and fish, but it'd be brutally cold. And so April 1st, he's like, I'll take you fly fishing. I'm like, great. Dad, kind of going way back as a kid, I remember going to a conservation club, and my dad learned to tie flies. Even though he never really got into fly fishing, he was using them to troll. I went and dug that kit out that winter, started trying to tie flies, there was a local fly shop, trying to go in there. He was kind of gruff because I really didn't know what I was doing. And then I went fly fishing for the first time April 1st on the West Branch of the Penobscot, and he made me meet him at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was a 2-hour drive, and it didn't make it. Now it really doesn't make any sense. But we get there because he thinks that there's going to be a lot of people. That's what his kind of like he was thinking Salmon River on the West Branch.
Get there before dawn.
Right.
Back.
Yeah. So we get there, and it's like no one because it's stupid. It's snow. He goes, do this, and walks away downriver and leaves me there. And so I'm casting away. He comes back. It starts snowing. He comes back probably, 30 minutes, 40 minutes later. He goes, let me check your fly. I had no fly on there. I had lost it in the snowbank, in the snow. Continued to tie flies. Never went fishing again. He took me again. I think it was sometime in May. Same deal. Meet me at 1 o'clock in the morning at my house. We'll drive 2 hours to the West Branch. We get there, we're sitting in the dark with his friend, and I could hear splashing. It had to be mid-May, and it was splash, splash, splash. And I'm like, what's that? He goes, that's fish rising, jumping out of the water. And I'll never forget when the sun came up, landlocked salmon were flying out of the water, chasing mayflies. And I'm like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And from that time on, I went every single weekend. Every Saturday, I went fly fishing. And that was my thing to do. And then I was started helping. I did that for a couple years, and I was fishing all over the state. And at that time, it was fine. It was the beginning of the internet. I mean, it was hard to find information. So I started a website called the Maine Fly Fish Journal.com, which is no longer in existence. But what it was like a blog. So I would go to the West Branch and say the water temperature was this, the water flow was this. I used this fly, caught 5 fish, just trying to help people because I thought it was hard for me to find information, and I didn't know a lot of people that fly fished other than, that UPS driver, and then a couple other people along the way I found that fly fished, but there was no information out there. And my local fly shop, he was a great guy, but he was gruff. He was just, he scared you when you walked in there. So I started that. Then Maine Fishing Journal returned into MaineFlyFish.com, which is still in existence today. It's a big information website with a forum. And then I didn't know what guiding was because we could never afford a guide. Never really heard much about guides. And that was by chance. An ex-brother-in-law had a bunch of friends that worked on Wall Street, and I was talking to him on the phone, and I was telling him about fly fishing, and he said, well, we should bring him up and go fishing with you. I'm like, yeah, that would be great. Let's do it. Come up, stay at my house, have some beers. And he said, well, they're going to want to pay you. And I'm like, pay me to fish?
Heck yeah.
I'm like, I said, I don't even know. You don't need to do that. And then I got looking into it. And, and I went for my Maine guide's license. And Maine is one of the hardest, by what I'm told, is one of the hardest in the country to get your guide's license.
We don't even have it in Virginia.
Really?
You just want to be a guide. They're like, oh, okay.
Really?
That's it.
Yeah. That's not Maine. Back when, it's even harder now, I think. When I went for my guide's license, you have to, you still do. You have to do map and compass. So there's a sequence you set in front of a panel of wardens, and back then it was Maine guides. So it'd be like two wardens, 2 guides, or 3 wardens, 1 guide, something like that. It was like a selected panel. And so you would do a written test, and you still do it, and it was like 200 questions. What? If you got past that, and it was all like the law book. So say I'm going for my fishing guide's license, I got to know like all the general laws by heart of the law book. And so you do this, and then I don't know what's in there now, but there might be some you have a lost person type deal, and you'd have to answer the questions there. So you get past that, then you go and do map and compass. So they put, you got to do true north and magnetic north, and they'll give you a starting point, and then they'll say, at the outlet of this lake, you need to, go to the inlet of this lake, and then come back. You got to do like 3 points of something, and so you need to know how to read a topographical map. So you do that, and you can only be off by so much. I don't remember what it was. And if you get past that, then you would do a lost person scenario. My scenario was, we'll say Joe Murray Lake. You're at Joe Murray Lake guiding, you're canoeing across with clients, you stop to have lunch. One of the clients says they need to go pee. So they wander off to go use the bathroom. Been half an hour, he hasn't come back. You go looking for him, you can't find him, you come back. So what do you do? So in a scenario like that, you're going to make that other client stay where he is, gather firewood, build a fire, and that's his job. Do not move from the spot. You're So then they'll show, like, you're looking at this map. My map showed a hiking trail around this whole lake. So what's your first instinct? Oh, he's following the hiking trail. But I also had a friend that was a warden, and he told me that all the people they find that are lost, they are downhill and usually in a swamp, because swamps are usually at the bottom of hills. And so in my case, there was a swamp. So I followed the swamp down, and that's, where I found my lost person. Once you get past that, then they go through fish identification, and then they'll, go through the law book and give you, just randomly throw out questions on general laws. Or they'll say, okay, I always go back to Joe Mary Lake. It's easy. It's a general. Joe Mary Lake, what's the law on brook trout at Joe Mary Lake? So you need to be able to take a law book, look up Joe Mary Lake, go through and do the S4, S7, whatever it is, and know if you can keep one fish, two fish, the length. It might be fly fishing only. It might be might be barbless. So, and then
pretty in depth.
Yeah, and if you get through all that, then you get your license. And now Maine there's no master Maine guides anymore. I was the last group to go through that test. And back then, the master Maine guide was you had to pass rec, fishing, and hunting, and you became a master Maine guide. I had done my fishing and rec, so all I had to do was hunting, took that, passed that. And that was the very last time that you were allowed to become a master Maine guide. And now you can become a master fishing guide, master hunting guide, master rec guide, but you have to do, back what I remember was, it could be changed now, but it was like, say, 10 years, so many hours. You had to document all your hours, how many hours you'd guided to be a master fishing guide, master rec guide, master hunting guide. And I think it's just more of a title. I don't think it really means anything. But, Maine has a huge history of Maine guides. There's, in the industry right now, there's a lot of trying to get women into the industry. The cool thing about Maine, as far as I know, Maine's first guide was a female, Fly Rod Crosby, which is kind of neat. She used to go around and do sportsman shows for the state, trying to get people to come to the state.
And then you also have the woman from the Rangeley Lakes area, another famous tire, Carrie Stevens. Right.
Yeah.
Women are big history up there.
And well, if you go back to the start of where did fly fishing start in the United States?
Catskills. Well, that's where it became famous.
It's where it became famous, and I could be wrong. You could do the research after I say this, and you can edit it out. But fly rods, F.E. Thomas, Payne rods. I was started to do it, but I never went anywhere with it. Called the Journal. Everyone has a story. F.E. Thomas fly rods, not Thomas and Thomas, but Thomas rods, bamboo rods, was started in Brewer, Maine. And those two, Payne, I think it's Payne, which he was in either New York, I think. Those two, so F.E. Thomas worked with Payne, and if you go back and watch that, I did an interview with the owner of F.E. Thomas now, he's a UPS driver actually, and those two split, and F.E. Thomas came back to Maine and Brewer and started that bamboo fly rod company, and then the other, I think it was Payne, was started somewhere in New York. And then back then, it was like an assembly line, the way they made bamboo fly rods. So the only people that really knew how to make the fly rods was F.E. Thomas and Payne. So you had like one guy that knew how to split the bamboo, and that's all he knew how to do. So it was kind of like a secret. It was kind of neat. It was a cool interview.
Nice. All right.
What else we have for famous
fly tires up that way? Besides Carrie Stevens. Any old, like the Atlantic salmon people from way back in the day?
Yeah, they're around.
Striper
a lot of them.
Fishermen.
There's a lot of fly tires. Maine. The thing is, and again, why I started Maine Fly Fish is because to promote Maine, Maine it doesn't in the world of fly fishing, it doesn't get recognition a lot. But, you go to Rangeley, Maine, and still today we have Labrador-sized brook trout. I just caught a 42-inch muskie this year in Maine.
You've got quite the diversity of species up there. Do you want to go
wild,
through all the different things you could come across?
I'll try. We have a lot of wild species. We have a small population of wild rainbow trout on the Kennebec. They actually manage them for wild.
Are those salters?
Nope, they're not. No, I wouldn't be driving to New York if we had steelhead in Maine. We have an incredible striper fishery. I'll kind of come up the state. So we have an incredible striper fishery in southern Maine. Maine Fishing Adventures. I have guides all over the state. It kind of developed over the last 2 years where I have guides that do trips for me. You have out of Portland, Casco Bay area, and south of that you have the York, Kittery area, which is phenomenal. Stripers, a lot of on foot stuff, a lot of stuff you can do yourself. Some exceptional guides as you I'll just kind of hit areas. As you come up the state, you have Belgrades. Years ago, the Belgrades was known for brook trout and landlocked salmon, and that fishery is pretty much non-existent because there's northern pike in there. So I'll do guided trips for northern pike down the Belgrades. The state does not manage for them. They don't manage for northern pike or muskie. That's kind of another topic. But we have my biggest northern pike in Maine is 39.5 inches on a fly.
My goodness.
I've had clients break off bigger northerns, but the Belgrade area, the whole Belgrade system has phenomenal northern pike. They are invasive. The muskie are invasive and the pike are invasive. If you go West Maine, you have the Androscoggin's a cool fishery. That's over in Bethel. It kind of starts up in New Hampshire, I think, maybe, and then it comes down through Maine. Bethel is a beautiful area. They used to do a 2-fly over there, and that's a stock fishery for the most part. They have rainbows and brook trout. I don't think it could be browns. I don't think there is any browns, but there are browns scattered throughout Maine. As you go down the Androscoggin, it turns into a smallmouth fishery. There's been many write-ups in different magazines about that fishery. All the way in the Androscoggin dumps in, I think, down in Biddeford and turns into a striper fishery. So you get that. As you get the Kennebec River, which starts in the Moosehead Lake area, which is a phenomenal fishery. That's a mixed fishery. They do stock that with brook trout, but there's wild brookies and wild salmon. There's a mixed fishery there. It's a tailwater. And then as you go down the Kennebec, it turns into, like, down through Solon, there's rainbows, there's brown trout, there's smallmouth bass, and then you continue down the river into Augusta. Then it turns into, there's some history there where they took out the Edwards Dam, and that, I don't remember how many years ago, but I think that was one of the first dams.
20 years ago?
Yeah, it was one of the first dams in the country. We kind of, by what I know, we started, when they took that dam out, that started that process of taking dams out around the country, trying that, because they kind of went a different route. They had I don't even know if he's still alive. They had a lawyer involved, and he was, when they would come to relicensing, they would make him put fishways in. So that was kind of a loophole. Do they want to spend the money to put a fishway in? And so a lot of dams would come out because a fishway wouldn't be put in. But the Edwards Dam came out. Huge controversy between fishermen and conservation, because you used to be able to go to the mouth of that dam and catch monster stripers and monster brown trout. They took that dam out, opened up a lot more water going upriver, so now these fish are scattered. So basically starting in, I think it's Hathaway Dam. I think it's Hathaway Dam. I think that's Waterville still. From there down, it's tidal. When I was a UPS driver, my second year UPS driver, I would fish there every night for an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. That would be my lunch and breaks. And I would catch stripers, brown trout, and smallmouth bass.
Was there a certain fly you would use to target species, or were they just, you could use one fly and you never knew it would hit it?
No, I was fishing there. I met a guy in my run. He was Michael Booton. He was a fly tire. and he tied a lot of flies for, back then, fly fishing only, it no longer exists, was a great over shop. And he would tie flies with him and around the state. But I met him, and he would fish with me every night. And I remember standing there, and there was a little island in the middle, and the stripers would blow up, and they would follow the bait fish around this little island. So once they got in front of you, you'd throw, like a clouser or, some type of bait fish pattern. I hooked a striper. He hooked a big-ass brown. So there was a brown in that mix with the stripers probably eating the bait that, they were, spitting up. They would be I remember a black caddis hatch, and I would just hike downriver from there and catch browns, on black caddis. I haven't done that in years. Guiding my guiding's too busy now. So my fishing is limited to either running up for muskie, or I run to New York for the steelhead, or I'll go to Florida and kind of, try to do it on my own, or I have a buddy that guides in Jupiter, and I at least do a day with him or a morning.
You got to meet up with our buddy Thomas in Jupiter. That's where his grandmother-in-law lives.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Apparently everyone golfs down there. No one fishes. He's got the place to himself.
He probably knows my buddy Dino. I bet you. I mean, it's a small world.
Yeah.
But
how far is your drive to Salmon River?
I think it takes me 9.5 hours.
Wow.
What I usually do is I'll work, so I'll do like
driving for you is nothing then, right? I mean, you drive for a living.
Right. I'll drive through the night. That's how I do it. Is whoever's with me will sleep.
Meet at 1 o'clock in the morning at the house, like when you were younger.
What's that?
Meet at 1 o'clock in the morning, like on those first trips you used to take, and then drive.
UPS. I've always done the preload. So preload starts at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So getting up early is. I mean, this morning I was up at 5. My alarm goes off at 5. I don't have to be to work until 10:30. But I get up. I try to post. Now with Instagram, try to do something on Instagram, try to do something on Maine Fly Fish, try to keep that forum active, tie some flies, go to the gym, make it to work.
Let's go back to the smallies. You guys, there's a pretty big smallmouth on your Instagram. What's the fishery and technique, flies? Like, if we're going to pick one species to talk about, maybe in depth, you want to talk about the smallies? Because you catch regularly big ones where I might get one that size every 5 years when I'm out just by myself down here.
I mean, the fishery is phenomenal. Penobscot, I think Field and Stream rated it one of the top 10 in the country. That was years ago. I'll kind of go through my season on the Penobscot.
Yeah, please do.
I'll start. I tell people typically the end of May, just because of water flows. You don't know what's going to happen. I've had a guy catch a 21-inch smallie April 18th out there on a fly rod. Guy from Utah. One of the fattest fish I've ever seen in my life.
I thought you were going to say your client.
What's that?
It almost sounded like you were about to go into the size of your client there.
It was just a huge smallie, and that was an interesting trip because I tried to talk him out of going to the Penobscot. I tried to talk him to go to Grand Lake Stream in April, but he convinced me to go to the river, and he got like an 18-incher, a 19-incher, and then the last one was like 21, 22. No, it was 22 inches because it was at that time was the biggest one I've had seen. It was just fat. It was a monster. But typically the end of May, April, I'll fish myself. I'll go out in the river and fish, but I hate to. If the river gets blown out because of runoff and snow and rain, I hate to take clients out. But end of May, they'll start spawning, so you'll have a mix of fish. You'll have some on beds, some not on beds. In the river, I don't necessarily target them on beds. If we come across something, that we see, then. But the water is, it's a brackish water, so it's not crystal clear. So it's kind of hard. And if the water's up, you can't. You might know they're in a little cove, but you can't say, okay, there's a bed there. Hit the bed and strip through it. You can't typically do that. So I'll just cover water.
And is this on foot or in a boat?
No, this is a boat. Sorry, I own a 18.6 G3 jet boat, center console. That one I bought that new, I think, last spring. I've always had a G3, pretty much always had a G3 jet. You have a casting platform on both ends. I run a trolling motor with a remote. I bought from Hyde a leading post. So I drilled holes on the bow, and so people that are uncomfortable on their feet, because it's kind of open.
Leading to that pulpit.
Yeah, and when I hit the trolling motor, and sometimes I don't necessarily, you're fighting current because you're floating downriver with the current. Sometimes you hit that, and it might go. I think it's going right, but it's going left, and people they'll stumble, and so I put that leaning post in, which is a nice feature. I have a guy that's been coming with me from day one, and he spins fish for smallies, and he sits down, and I put that in, and he does like 5-6 trips with me, and he stands up the whole time now. He's like in his 70s. So from there, May into June. So June, I'm running back and forth doing trout and salmon and bass. It's anywhere in the country. It's good fishing in the June. Fish a lot of streamers. The water will start getting lower. The reason for the jet boat is typically I'll run from a foot of water into 10 feet of water. You just never know with the river. So, and it's very rare that I see people on the river. There's other guides that I have do trips for me, and they do stuff on their own, and I'll see them at boat launch put in, and I won't see them all day. I'll run up river 20 minutes, and a lot of them don't have jets, or a lot of people don't have jets, so they stay down by the boat ramps, because there's a lot of deep water, good fishing. But I don't have to fish with a lot of people. You go into June, the fish will start looking up. We'll start throwing poppers. I'll use a lot of black and yellow poppers. Sometimes green, orange has worked.
You have a preference for? Are you a foam guy, cork, balsa, deer hair?
Yeah, I use that. I used to use what are they called? Bugle bugs. They're a great company.
Bugle bugs, yeah. That's a 6-pack on a hook, basically, with the price.
Yeah. But I switched over to Flymen, those double bear poppers.
Those things, I should be getting a whole shipment of those tomorrow. It's so easy to tie with those. They're so lightweight and indestructible.
And the pop is like I use like not the smallest one, the next one up, and I think number 6. You just do a little pop, and it just. I love that popper, and I tie it. My go-to is black and blue. That's pretty much where they don't make a yellow. I wish they made a yellow. They make a chartreuse, greenish chartreuse one.
It's Kermit. I'm looking at them on my wall.
Yeah, I know that's probably for the frog, but I want a yellow. Those two colors, but the black and blue, I do like a marabou, blue tail, blue legs, black hackle, and that's a great damselfly. I mean, so you roll into July, and the damselflies will start hatching, and I mean that's just the fish are everywhere. A lot of my fishing is I fish the banks. A lot of the times, I'll look to rising fish. I mean, I'm always looking around. I mean, as a guide, you're always looking. If I start seeing dimples, I'm in the middle of the river. Then we'll go in the middle of the river, and I'll fish. My biggest smallies come on a dead drift. So when I started fly fishing, it was all trout, and when I got my guide's license, that's all I thought I was going to do was trout and salmon. So when I started doing the smallies, I treated the smallmouth a lot like I did trout and salmon. So I throw out, mend the line, and drift it like a dry fly. And to date, the biggest fish that I've caught, other than that one on the streamer in April, the biggest fish are on like a dead drift dry fly. What I find is if you get, and it's exciting, you throw a popper out and it just explodes. It blows up, and you miss it. And a lot of times people think, "Oh my God, that was a big one." It was a pack. It was a pack of 5 fish.
Ooh.
So I sight fish
for it.
So you throw out. So and I've watched this and I don't know this because I'm constantly looking and watching. You're throwing, you're just blind casting to the bank, but I'm always looking down the river and I'll be like, okay, here comes 3, and you'll throw it, you'll lead them, they're just cruising the bank looking for food, and they'll just accelerate, and the 3 of them will chase it at the same time and explode. And also, I'll watch as someone's bringing in the fly. They'll have the fish on, and they're bringing it in, and you'll see the fish, the other 2, trying to take the fly out of its mouth. And you in your rod, you can almost feel it because you'll be fighting it, and there'll be a surge because because they're trying to take the fly out of the fish's mouth. I mean, we have the Penobscot has a lot of fish. I always tell people it's our version of Montana. Where we can go out a slow day. A friend of mine, one of my clients, just wrote a book you might have seen on Instagram, and he said we had caught over 20 fish, and it was a so-so day. And the first time I think it took him, we probably caught 60 or 70 fish. The best day on the river, well, at one point the best day was 121 fish. Because once you start getting you get counting, people like, let's just see how many we can catch, and that was all in top water. And then the next one went to, I think, 125 smallies, and then this past year, I think he stops it at 140 fish, and that's just floating. That's not like multiple,
ridiculous.
Catching. That's not catching the same fish over and over again.
Is there a fish you would catch while doing that would surprise you? Do you have invasives up there? I imagine the water's probably too cold for exotics to live.
On the Penobscot, it's interesting. So when you say invasive,
you mentioned the pike.
Well, the pike are invasive, but they've been in the Belgrade since the 70s. Okay, so at this point they've kind of taken over. I don't mean to jump all over the place, but so they've been so now they've kind of taken over. So, at this point, you're not getting rid of the pike down there. So a lot of us think we should just manage it for them, create a fishery down there. In the Penobscot, the smallies have been, the 60s probably, if not longer. They've been in the Penobscot. They've been there a long time. They kind of manage for them, but they don't protect that fishery, but I don't know how many people come from I have guys that fly in from Michigan. They come in, they stay with me for 3 days, and we do 3 days of just smallmouth fishing. And Michigan has incredible fishing, for smallies. But in Pushaw Stream that dumps into the Penobscot, somehow northern pike got in there. And I'm on the river a lot. I haven't had anyone catch a northern pike out while bass fishing, but I've heard stories where Pushaw Stream comes into the Penobscot, northern pike being caught. I've seen one, I think, come out of some weeds one time. It was, it was under 30 inches. It was pushing 30 inches. It was a big fish. It kind of shocked me. That scooted out of the weeds as I was, throwing poppers for smallies. But that would be, kind of cool. Another thing, in the world stage of conservation, Atlantic salmon, Maine Atlantic salmon is kind of that's out there, and they're on the endangered species list now. We took out a dam in VZ last year. I had one of my friends that now lives in Maine, but from Florida. We were wading the Penobscot, and he hooked a Atlantic salmon on a mudland minnow. And he said that he's caught a lot of saltwater fish, and he's never had a fish put him in a backing so fast. And it was probably a 30-inch Atlantic, and he lost it.
That got to upset him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was before they put him on the endangered species list. And I had a client this year catch one. It was that week of that end of May, so the water was up. He was fishing, we're floating the shore. He threw into an eddy where, they're going to set. The smallie's going to set to get out of the current. And we're fishing just a crystal woolly bugger. And he hooked something, and it was silver. What is it, under 24 inches? It's a landlocked salmon. This was probably 16 inches, but it's in the Penobscot. It could be an Atlantic. I've been guiding up there 17 years. I had one brook trout caught. I had that one small. Well, my friend hooked the Atlantic, didn't land it, and then this year that small Atlantic was caught. But other than that, you catch on the Penobscot when you're smallmouth fishing, you can get up to probably 18-inch chubs, fall fish, big pickerel on occasion. A lot of people call them deduct fish. So if they're counting, I used to have a group that would come and
deduct. I get it.
Deduct.
Take a point off.
Yeah, take a point off for pickerel. But pickerel are cool fish if you target them in the spring when they're spawning. I mean, last year we got one 24 inches. I mean, big fish anywhere.
What kind of setup would you say is average for up there for when you're solo fishing for fun or when you've got clients on the boat?
What I recommend to clients is anywhere from a 6 to 8 weight, which 8 weight I think is overkill, but I have a lot of older people, and it's a little bit easier for them to throw the 8 weight. The smaller fly, heavier line, they throw it. I fish with I'm on Scott Flyward Pro staff, so I fish, obviously all Scots, and I use a 6 weight Radian, a fighting butt, and the Radians are a phenomenal rod. I don't know if you've tried them at the shows that you've done or not, but I use that, and I'm with Airflow, and I use their Bass Muskie line, or I use their Redfish line. They were out of the Bass Muskie a couple years ago, and he sent me the Redfish line, and that is a really cool line for smallies.
No issues with colder water up there and a Redfish line?
I don't typically get where it's super cold. I mean, you think of like Maine right now, it's cold.
If it's 25 here today in Northern Virginia, what's it up there?
10 today.
Ooh, my goodness.
And I'm going north of where I am right now, and it's going to be even colder. I deliver packages in Moosehead, so not only do I guide up in those rivers on foot in the fall, but I also deliver my packages, so I could fish every day on my lunch if I wanted to.
And when does short season end for you?
Meaning with fishing?
The brown shorts.
Oh, my shorts? A short season. Well, it depends on how hot it is, I don't know, September into October, maybe.
And then down here, people are always saying, oh, poor you, UPS driver. You have no air conditioning in the summer. Up there, do you need air conditioning to be a UPS driver, or is it just nice having the doors open all day?
So this is you sent me that that question, and I've heard it a lot on my run because the last year there's been a big thing about AC and UPS trucks, right?
It would all leak out when the doors are open.
Well, I've been a UPS driver for I think this is my 27th year at UPS.
So before they went public.
Yes.
Nice.
That's a whole nother story there. So I part-time for 7 years. So I've been driving close to 20 years. I've never had AC.
Can you trail a boat behind your...
My truck, if I wanted to, I probably could, because I drive a four-wheel drive Dodge pickup truck with a box on the back. Because all I do is remote stuff. So I live remote. I fish remote. I work remote.
You would lose it if you came down to where I live, with just how unremote this place is.
I've been through it. Because we drive to Florida sometimes. So I end up actually making a wrong turn and drove right through DC at 4 a.m., which was kind of cool because there was no one on the streets and I got to see everything. But I just drive through. I never stopped long enough to go see any of the monuments.
Well, if you got time next time, you'll stop and we'll go fish by the monuments.
That would be cool.
DC license for you would be $6.
That's cheap. I think
you can't beat that. Out of state is 13 for the year.
See, I think here's 30 for out of state. Maybe 20, I don't know. Maybe 50 for a year, maybe 25 for 7 days. I think they only do 7 days. Like I buy, like when I go to New York, I just buy a year because I end up going 2 or 3 times. But yeah, where were we? We were talking
remote drop-offs and air conditioning.
Oh, AC. Back to AC. So I'm never in my UPS truck long enough to enjoy AC. I mean, so let me take that back. Me on my run, yes, because I have 30 minutes in between deliveries. But most drivers only have minutes in between deliveries. So you're never in your package car long enough. This is my opinion. There's going to be other drivers out there, but I've saw the drivers down in Florida when I went to Tampa, went over and went to Barfly, and in came a UPS driver while I was sitting there having a margarita. And I got talking to him, and, it's brutally hot, and you get stuck in traffic down there. But you open up UPS doors. I mean, I can't do it on my UPS truck because I have a pickup truck, but a typical UPS truck, you open up the doors, you drive, but you're never in it long enough to really enjoy the AC. So,
do you ever have dogs try and jump in your truck?
Oh yeah, every day. I got a guy in my run. He is a big fly fisherman. I actually bought my drift boat from him, and he has 2 Labradoodles, and I picked him up like at the end of his driveway. He'll run all the way to the end of the driveway. I'll open my door. He'll jump in. I'll drive him down the driveway, or I get in the back of the truck. He lets the dogs out. I mean, he did it last night. I'll open up. The oldest dog jumps right into the back of the UPS truck and runs around, looks at and smells stuff. A cool thing about my run, and I don't think there's many runs out there that this happens, I can stop and feed deer on my run, wild deer. If you go to my Instagram, and in the fall, I backed into someone's house to deliver, to get off the road, and I looked to my left, and there was a pine had fallen down, and there was a buck, and it was walking around the tree. It was eating the tree. It walked around. It walked like kind of right to the UPS truck, but went around the front. So I jumped out. I went, and it turned around, walked back to me, smelled my hand, walked down around the UPS truck. I delivered the package. It was down on the lawn. I stuck my hand out again, and I filmed this. And I went, and it ran back to me. I patted its hands. I grabbed its antler. It shook its head and galloped off.
You're gonna have a deer jump in your truck sometime.
It's pretty cool. It's neat. And that's over in Rockwood. That's over where. So kind of cool thing about the Moosehead Lake area, you have the Moose River, the East Outlet, and then you have Roach River. Those are all phenomenal spring and fall fisheries for trout and salmon. And then there's a lot of ponds around. So the Rockwood, over in the Rockwood area, I'm delivering right on Moose River. And I'm assuming the deer are coming across and, coming down to drink the water. So it's kind of neat.
And speaking of the deer and ticks go along with each other. Do you have to worry about ticks and stuff up in Maine? And what about, I always hear about the black flies. I had mosquitoes up there bite me through my pants once.
Yeah.
How do you deal with those pests?
Yeah, I just, like with the ticks, I just go. I don't, you don't worry about it. I mean, you can't never go outside. You worry about that stuff. I think I got Lyme disease several years ago. Like, I kind of caught it in the beginning. I came home one night from work, and it was spring, and it might have been midsummer. And I got home, and I thought I was coming down with the flu. Chills, aches and pains, shaking all night, cold, couldn't get warm. Took ibuprofen in the morning, I was better. Went to work. Ibuprofen would wear off, and I did that for 3 days. So by Friday, I went to my doctor, and nowadays you can just look up symptoms online. So I went to my doctor, and I said, I'm either having the beginning of a heart attack or I got Lyme disease. This is what I can find online. He treated me it was in June, because I remember not be able to drink at all on a fishing trip overnight trip with some clients that like to drink. I couldn't drink because I was on the antibiotics for like 8 days, and it went away. So I never tested positive for Lyme disease, but I'm always outside. I live on the river. We have a fire pit on the river. We're out there every night. I work outside. I fish outside. UPS. I'm in a remote area. I run into the woods to use the bathroom to go pee. so I could get ticks on me there.
No, not there, hopefully.
No, not there, but they do say to tick check there, because they like to get up into the darker places, I guess. This year was the first year my dog, actually, I have a yellow lab, and she had 2 or 3 ticks on her. But you can't stop living, I guess. I know Southern Maine, it's a little bit warmer. They have a lot of ticks down there. I'm kind of like mid-Maine. I'd consider Bangor mid-Maine, because it's 3 hours for me to get to Northern Pike 3 hours for me to get to Muskie, which is on the border of Maine and Canada. It's 3 hours for me to get to Rangeley. So we're kind of centered in the state. It's 3 hours for me to get to Stripers. So that's why I have guides all over the state, because I got people asking, different trips. Black flies, they can be really bad. I was doing a trip on the West Branch we had 2 boats on the river floating. We had them on the river for 3 days. We floated. So back then we really had no one to shuttle us. So we had 2 guides. We left a truck at the put in. We left a vehicle at the takeout. So when we got back to, we finished for the day, we stopped at the, took the boats out. We ran up to get the second truck. We left clients there. Black flies were out. Came back. Everyone jumps in the vehicles. They got bit, which, happens. Dropped them off at the hotel. Picked them up in the next morning, and one of the wives didn't come because she was sick from so many black fly bites. And she came out to say, "I'm sorry, I'm not going." She took off her sunglasses, and both her eyes had swollen up to almost closed.
What was y'all's reaction? Just like, bah.
Yeah, it was like,
take them off.
I've never seen anything like it. She ended up in the emergency room, and he fished with me. The third day, he ended up going home with her because she was just so sick and bad from the black fly bites. And that was back before these bug shirts that you can buy now. The buffs have the bug stuff in them, bug stoppers, which is, I love those shirts. And my web guy took him on the West Branch one time, and it had to be June. That's usually when early June, the black flies are out. And he had long hair, and under his hair was just blood. His wife actually texted me and wanted to know what I'd done to him, because, the black flies had got him. They don't bother me. I don't know if it's, I put bug spray on, or I have bug shirts. They don't necessarily bother me, and they don't bother most people. And once you're on the water, they don't usually bother you. It's when you're waiting. So I do on the West Branch for trout and salmon. I have a at-a-post drift boat, and so they're not out there. The mosquitoes aren't out there. It's when you're back on shore is when you're gonna, you have the mosquitoes or bugs. And the same thing for bass fishing. There's, at the boat launch, it sucks. You get in the boat, you go, you don't have anything. Maybe occasional moose fly or a horse fly.
Moose fly? I've heard of horse flies. Never heard of moose flies.
Twice the size of a horse fly.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to have to deal with that. A normal horse fly is painful enough.
Yeah, these things take a chunk out. Actually, one of the worst things I think are those what are they called? They have green eyes. They look like a housefly, but they have green eyes and they bite.
I don't know, we get these things in the boat that just go after your ankle.
Yeah, it looks like a housefly.
Right.
Oh, we also have no-see-ums. Those, you got to smoke a cigar, you got to have a bug shirt on, and you got to have bug spray on.
And you get those in Florida too, right?
Yeah, oh my God. we went to Alamorada last year. A kid that, I think he's like, what is he, 21, 22. I posted on Instagram, I was going to Alamorada with my son, and he's like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me. Back, I did my senior project on MaineFlyFish.com, and he goes, I'm living on a sailboat in Alamorada. Maybe we can fish together." I'm like, sweet. So he'd work every day, and then we'd go fishing with him at night. And I've been going down on Alamorada for years and just trying to do it on myself and rent a boat. And I love hiring a guide, but I like learning and trying to figure out this stuff on my own. He said, "Well, we're going to go into this spot," which I'd driven by, many times and didn't know it was there. And it was this backwater that had tarpon in it. and it got dark, and we had caught some baby tarpon, and it was getting dark, and that was we have them bad in Maine. That was the worst experience of no-see-ums I've ever had in my life. We had to leave, go eat, and then come back after dark when they were gone. That was brutal. That was just super brutal.
Let's talk about show season right now.
Yes.
Marlboro coming up first?
I'm gonna go to Marlboro. I'm on HMH Vice's pro staff, and so I'm gonna be down there tying. I went down for the first time we've done Marlboro in the past. My rep, he's done it. Scott Flyrods used to do it. It's kind of got smaller in the years. It's still a good show, especially for New England. And I went down and set and tied some pike flies with HMH. John's a great guy. He's very generous to me, and I wanted to go help him out. And so we took a day and went down, Stace and I, and it was great. The show was great. The booth was packed. I actually booked 2 guys from the Cape. They came up and did smallmouth and northern pike with me, and they rebooked for this year. So we're going to go down and do that show. Stace does a lot of stuff with me. I was trying to get her to do the podcast with me this morning, but she had to go work. But I think a lot of people come back just to see her. She has a great one of those infectious personalities, and so we go down and we do that show, and then we go do Jersey, that's the big show. I know you've been to. Now it's in Edison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not making it this year. Or to Lancaster. No, just logistics this year aren't working out.
Yeah.
Well, we got the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival this weekend. Last year it snowed and no one showed up. It's going to be about 70 degrees this weekend.
Yeah, I've heard that's a great show. I actually had
it's open container.
I sent that link to Stace yesterday, and she's like, perfect, right up our alley. Wine and fly fishing.
There are booths that have slushy machines where they just pour bottles of wine in them, and you get a 20-ounce rosé slushy to walk around with.
That's pretty cool.
That's 4 booths away from where I'm tying.
I was listening to your podcast, and I can't remember who was right beside that booth. I think the girl was, and you were asking her about that slushy.
Yeah, I might have to get one this year if it's 70 degrees. Usually it's so cold when the doors open, the temperature just drops in there. But I'll be wearing flip-flops.
Yeah. We love the shows. A lot of people are like, we got to go do a show again. For me, I love talking about, like, doing this. I love this because we're talking about fishing. If I'm not fishing, I'll talk about it. That's, we love doing the shows, and we get to see everybody. I do in Jersey at Edison, I'm at the Scott Fly Rod booth. Stace comes to that. She started coming a couple years ago with me, and they welcome her with open arms. So now she comes to every show. It's the crew at Scott Fly Rods they fish. They're all fishy. They're all great people. Very fortunate to be part of that team. So we look forward to it. It's a little vacation for us to get away. And then from there, we roll into the Bears Den does a show. That's a really good
Big
show.
One this year, too. Is it 30th?
Yeah.
They're having their huge one. Anthony sent me a note to come up. I'm like, dude, that's just too far. I would love to go.
It'd be worth it for you to have a booth. He does a great job. The way he does it, he funnels them. It's like a mini Marlboro show. I go down with the rep. So the rep will be, he'll have Scott, Airflow, Galvin, some fly companies, Aqua Waiters. So, he'll be there. So I'll go down there, and again, I get to talk about fishing. We make a weekend of it. So we'll go down early Saturday morning, get there, help Bob set up, stay overnight, get up, and then we'll go into Boston. We'll go to Quincy Market, go into the big city, get some good food, and then drive back. And then Maine has our big show would be Aldridge Brothers Fly Show. That place he does something unique at that show is you win a fly rod. You win, like, we give away a Scott fly rod. Bob is also a rep of Echo, so he gives away an Echo rod. Winston's there. I think Reddington's there. I can't remember who else he sells. they give away a rod. So what you have to do, he sets an outdoor casting ring. You have to cast a fly rod, and then you get your name in a drawing once. And so everyone gets a shot at winning a fly rod or something. And he has Maine tires there, tying saltwater flies, trout flies. He has a few lodges there. It's a crazy show. It's a busy show. You can't pass out a fly rod fast enough. That's a good. That's probably. And then we end it there, and then typically, Stace and I will go to Florida, or my son and I will go to Florida, and then April 1st here in Maine. It's usually cold. If you want to fish, with people, kind of like the Salmon River, you go to Grand Lake Stream, opening day. That's kind of a tradition here in Maine. I've never done it. I chase northern pike because I'm trying to catch one over 40 on a fly. And then I roll into guide season. End of April, I'll start, as soon as the ice is out, I'll start guiding for northern pike. If I have people that are crazy enough to.
What's a pike fly like? Imagine it's got to be very durable.
Yeah, mine's very simple. It's a kind of, the red and white, like a daredevil. But you can buy, well, you used to be able to buy, I'm pretty sure you still can, Flashaboo, where it's red and silver in the pack. Pretty simple. I tie that on as a tail. Then I palmer some white rabbit, crosscut rabbit. And then I put on one of those fish skull heads. I used to epoxy, and then they came up with those fish skull heads, those plastic things with put a big eye on. And, I try other flies, but I catch 20-inch smallmouth while we're out there. If you went to Instagram and went back and saw the April trip, Stace, this is why I think a lot of people, come back to fish with Stace. Stace goes on trips with clients now. Like Scott did a pike trip in the spring, and, she was catching 18 to 20-inch smallies, and she was using, that, McKay, I call it McKay's pike fly. And it's very simple, but you can catch a lot of fish on it. The fish are in the shallows. And as summer goes, they start moving out in the lakes. I'm fishing a lot of flats, shallow areas. Some part of the stream, there's a stream that runs through in different places. Some deep drop-offs. I had a guy last year, the guys from the Cape. That was a brutal trip. We did smallies, and then we went and did the pike, and it was blowing so hard that they would come back in a back cast, and the fly would actually get blown back and hit him in the back. It was blowing so hard. And they got some pike, and I kept on telling them, I said, a 36-inch pike will change the day. And we kept on fishing. They were all like, 24-inch to 27-inch pike, some smallies mixed in. And then the guy said, I tied this perch pattern I wanted to try. I'm like, okay, I got a spot. It's a drop off. It's deeper water. Let's put a sinking line on. And I had the other guy casting to the bank, had him cast in the middle. He's stripping in, and I make him pause. I don't necessarily do the figure eight like I do with the muskie, but I always make him pause, at least hang it there in case something's following it. And I'm looking forward, and he's like, I got one. And sure enough, it was a 36-inch northern. That was his last fish of the day. And he sent me an email afterwards, and he said, you're right, the 36-inch fish changed the day. But we have, Maine's a cool place. It's, but the pike flies, it's very basic. I don't get really fancy with the pike flies. I might, after I watch the guy catch one on the perch fly, I'm gonna change it up a little bit this year. I keep it very simple for people, and it's hard casting for people. The northern, same thing with the muskie. You got to be, I think you got to be a little bit more advanced caster. It's easier for like the salt guys because they're always throwing sinking lines or big flies, or they're throwing into the wind or into the surf. For someone that does a lot of nymphing or is new to fly fishing, I've put people on pike that haven't fly fished a lot. It's harder for them. And I've been very fortunate in my guiding, knock on wood, and I've been told not to say this ever, but I've never been skunked guiding. And I'm told many times, do not say that out loud. And I purposely say it out loud to see if I can get skunked. But I've come close. I had a guy in a remote
I take it
pond.
personally.
Huh?
It ruins. If we don't catch a fish, I go home just pissed.
I would too. I mean, when it's a slow day, I'm like, what? Why'd we only catch 20 smallies? And I'll go back out. Back when I had time to go back out, I wouldn't sleep at night. So I can't imagine having a day that. I mean, I had a day where we're remote pond fishing, trying to catch, a 3 to 5 pound brook trout, and he would pull it away. The guy would pull it away and go, "That's a small one." And I'm like, okay, first of all, we got to catch a brook trout, so I can continue to say we haven't been skunked.
Get it on the books.
And you don't know if that's a small brook trout. It's like at Salmon River. I apologize, jumping all over the place. That's the way my mind works.
Go for it.
At Salmon River, I remember, like my boys when they're really young. When you're there, you're at that in November. There's still kings in the river, and they would foul hook a king, and would just pop it off, break it off, or if you'd happen to foul hook a steelhead, you'd see it, and they'd pop it off, right? They wouldn't fight it in and kill it. And so I remember a few years ago, my son hooked this fish, and it was acting weird, and it was hunkering down, it was bulldogging, and he's like, "Oh, I got one, but it's foul hooked, it's a king," and I'm like, "Just wait and see what you have first. Let's see it before you break up," because I've seen them break off bare hook steelhead before, especially when they were 11 and 12, and they would they'd just snap them. Oh, it's foul hook, but it wasn't. He ended up catching a 15-pound brown off that gravel bar at the lower fly.
My goodness.
And it was a monster. It had a big hook jaw. It was. I mean, the kid was. He was. How old was he? He's how old is he now? 20. He must have been 15, 16, 15, 14. I don't remember. And he was just little, young. It was a monster fish, hooting and hollering. But and people do that. That's a small smallie. You don't know that. That's a small salmon. You don't know. Let's see it first. So I'll watch people do dry flies and they'll pull it away because they've watched the smaller fish plunk out of the water, and in that same run they'll hook an 18-inch landlot. But before that, they'll pull it away because they think it's just that small one. It's like let's catch the fish first, and then see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right. Let's wrap this up with a couple of fishing and non-fishing questions.
All right.
Who's got the best sandwich up where you are, or on your route?
Oh, I don't stop and eat, so I don't take breaks. I like to just go. If I stop and take an hour lunch, I'm usually tying flies or fishing. Sandwich wise, oh my God, I can't think of it right now. Right in Bangor, Stace goes there every Friday and gets a sandwich. I should have had that written down. I don't know. I can't think of it right now.
All right, we'll come back.
I apologize.
If you had a time-traveling UPS truck, you can go back in time to fish a pristine environment before humans ruined it, where would you go?
Ooh, if I was going back in Maine, I'd like to see Rangeley. I mean, right now we have big brookies, but there's some conservation issues, through Maine, and one of them is bass over in the Rapid area into the Rangeley, region. I'd like to see. I mean, we have big bass over there and big salmon, but I would have liked to see Rangeley back in the day when they were really like Carrie Stevens' time, even. I think her fish on the Gray Ghost was maybe 8 pounds.
My goodness,
that could be wrong. It was a monster.
All right. Who is your, or I should say, which is your favorite Spice Girl?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know the Spice Girls. The one that's on American Idol.
That would be Scary Spice.
She's pretty hot.
Yes. All right. Do you have any irrational phobias?
I have zero phobias that I can think of. None.
What do you call the ends on a loaf of bread?
That I do not know. The end.
Okay.
The butt?
I'll take butt.
What
song, when it comes on the radio, makes you immediately change the station?
Ooh, classical.
My wife likes that Four Non Blonde song, and I will punch the radio to turn it off. And she's like, "But I like that song." I'm like, "Get out and walk." We're not
It might
listening
be
to it.
what's Bieber's new song? That new one there.
He's got Lyme disease. Oh, his new song is Yummy.
Yummy, yummy, yummy. That might be a little annoying.
Yes.
I heard that the other day.
Which would win in a fight, a humidifier or dehumidifier? Who would you put money on?
I'm a D.
Okay.
It's going to get the water out right before, as it's putting it in, it's going to take it out.
There you go. What's something that you won't eat?
I won't eat. I don't know. Probably like pig snout or brain.
Yeah, brain.
I don't think I'd try those.
What's an item from your fishing gear that if you left at home would just ruin a guide trip or day of fun fishing?
That's a good one, and I knew that was coming, and I didn't even think about it. I'll tell you a quick story. I'd say flies. Quick story, that trip where we were on the West Branch and she got bitten by the black flies. When he left that day, so we went into the third day, he left, and, as a guide, I tried to have a routine, and I had all my stuff in the back of my pickup truck, all my flies and stuff. And when he was getting his stuff, he pushed all my flies and stuff off to the side. And so the last day we split up, the husband and wife, and the other guide had gone 2 days skunked. In my boat, we had caught fish. And so we floated down through some rapids. He anchored up behind me, and you hear him hooting and hollering. She's into fish. I had the husband with me. He had the wife. I go to grab my flies. They weren't there. Because I had broken the routine of them sitting right in the back by the tailgate were gone. And when I was getting the anchor and other stuff out, I never looked for the flies, assumed I had them. And there's no like going back in this section of the West Branch. I had 5 flies with me.
Oh no.
I had a McKay special, which is another trout streamer I had designed. I think a black stone, a copper john, and it might have been a green caddis worm. And he caught fish with 5 flies. So I learned 2 things that day. Never forget your flies, and you don't need that many flies to go fishing. You just need the right flies to go fishing.
Yes. Is there a phone app you'd recommend? It doesn't have to be relevant to fishing.
I only use apps out of necessity. So, like Instagram app, the Facebook app, and I only use those to try to build business. Other than that, I don't really play games on my phone. You wanted to do the Skype, I had to download the app to do it because I didn't have the app. I would say Instagram, like everyone else nowadays.
Indeed. Who is someone we should follow on social media that we might not be aware of?
Ooh, that's a hard one. But I get a lot of friends that are on Instagram. There's again, Eldridge Brothers Fly Shop. I do a lot of business with them. Good friends. Northwest Fly Company, I think they're called North NW Fly Company. Follow them. They do a lot of cool flies. Out Western Maine, they have a fly company. I follow them a lot. I want to do a shout out to some Maine people. Maine Fly Guys. He does a blog for me on MaineFlyFish.com. There's a bunch of them that I can't think of right now. Wish you would have sent me that. I would have a list. What other there's some fly shops that I follow. What is it? All Points Fly Shop, small shop in Portland. I don't do a lot of work with them, but nice guy. Trident Fly Fishing. They're another fly shop. Trident, another fly shop over in Wyndham. There's some of the fly shops I don't know if they're even on Instagram, so they're a little bit older school. Obviously, Maine Fishing Adventures. Who else? Oh, I'm looking here on my phone right now. Who pops up? That's Maine. Because Maine Fly Fish, _E Fly Fish. There's some good people. I do a search on Maine. There's a lot of, if you're going up to the Moosehead Lake region, Chalet Moosehead. They actually are, I think they're the only hotel on Moosehead. They're on Instagram now. Oh, you want to see some cool video? Some cool video is, we just did a muskie film. We tried to get into the film tour. We didn't make it, unfortunately. We did a muskie film, and higher elevations. Look them up. He does. If you're into hunting, actually look him up on YouTube. Higher elevations. He just put up. He took his nephew. He just took him on a hunt. His dad, his brother, and himself each took him out each day hunting to get his first deer on a youth hunt in Vermont. But if you like hunting videos and fishing videos, the guy's phenomenal.
Sounds good. Anything I forgot to ask you, or anything about Maine you wanted to mention?
No, I think we hit all the fish, didn't we?
Yeah.
We got muskie. I just started a website, mainemuskie.com, because I am trying to book. Right now, I'm just taking my own personal clients out that want to experiment with muskie, people I know that can fish, but eventually that hopefully is going to grow to some guided trips up there. I have a week booked up there right now with one of my clients, but I do have muskie guides up that I refer clients to, or new clients to, in Fort Kent area. But we do have a phenomenal muskie. We filmed when we went up and filmed, we filmed in October, and we filmed in July this year. And in 6 days of filming, we had 80 follows.
What? Dude, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, if you look in American Angler right now, Maine Fly guy, he just had an article come out in American Angler about Maine muskie. Drake Magazine, how do you say his last name? Broad. He writes a lot for the Drake Magazine. He did an article on Maine muskie. I took a client up for 3 days. One of my existing clients, he wanted to try it. We went up last September, and in 2.5 days, he had 19 follows, and he had 2 hookups. Lost him at the boat. I don't consider that a skunk, because he did have them on. And if he didn't, muskie to me is follows. I don't know if you've done the muskie game yet, but it's the most. I mean, I've been listening to different podcasts. I always kind of go towards, if I hear a muskie podcast or a carp. I didn't mention carp. Maine has monster carp. No one fishes for them. I'm not going to say where they are, but Maine has giant carp. I've seen them. I've had them come to fly. I haven't caught one yet. The carp coming to your fly and the muskie coming to my fly at the boat is probably the most exciting fishing I've done. It's amazing.
I do like some carp on the fly.
I haven't caught one yet, and I try to do everything in Maine. Like, it's just because I know it. Like, I wanted, I can go anywhere and catch pike, but I want to do it in Maine. Muskie, you can go. I mean, a lot of people doing muskie now, but I want to do one in Maine, and I wanted to get one over 40. The state record's 48 inches. So I caught a 42 last year on a fly, and those weren't on flies. The 48s weren't. There's two state records, and they within pounds of each other, and they weren't on a fly. I'd try to do whatever I'm going to do on the fly first in Maine, and then kind of branch up from there. That's my next goal, is to catch a carp in Maine on a fly.
Right on. Very cool. All right, so people should be looking for a shorter Vin Diesel at the upcoming shows?
Or taller Vin Diesel.
That's right, taller Vin Diesel. Yeah, I guess you couldn't have a shorter Vin Diesel. You said you're in the 6 foot range.
Yeah, normally I have a hat on and wear glasses, but yeah, come to HMH booth in Marlboro, or come to the Scott booth in Edison, New Jersey, and usually I can't shut up. Stace will have to hit me because I get talking about fishing in the booth, and someone will ask me a question about a rod, and I use this rod for that, and then as you see, I jump all over the place because I still get excited. I've been guiding for 17 years, fishing for 20, and I get excited when I talk about it. Hopefully, you could hear that when I talk. So
absolutely. Yes.
Still love it.
Very cool. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and educating us about Maine and what you do.
Hey, I appreciate it. You have a great podcast. I've been binging on it the last couple days, wanting to know what questions you were going to ask. You have some great guests on there, and I actually I listened to that one at Christmas, the Pennsylvania one.
Yeah.
I like the interview ones, but I kind of like listening to your story of fishing and meeting the guy in the river and then catching that really pretty steelhead. So
that fish, if I don't catch another fish, I'm good.
Yeah.
You
said
steelhead.
that.
And then we just cannot let my father-in-law know that fish went home with someone he got eaten, because I've never brought him a trout or steelhead before. And he would be very upset.
I've never kept one out there, but I mean, I understand why you did it, if, he helped you and, and
put a meal on someone's table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do all catch and release, but I don't frown on, people following the law and doing what they want to do.
Absolutely. All right, Kevin, go warm up, and hopefully the people at Duncan haven't been staring at you thinking you're talking to yourself this whole time.
They probably do. I usually have an earpiece in talking to someone. Hey, the best sandwich rest place in the Bangor area?
Yes.
Harvest Moon.
Harvest Moon. All right.
Yep. That's incredible sandwiches. And all their sandwiches, I think, are named after, music people.
So that would be
like the Bob Dylan, or you know what I mean? All the sandwiches.
Is the place named after On This Harvest Moon? Neil Young.
It could be. It could be. Have old records on the wall and stuff. And I've only been there several times. I know Stace goes every Friday. That's her treat for the week. But I've been there a couple times, and I've kind of noticed, like I said, all the sandwiches are named after music people. So Harvest Moon, there you go.
Right on, dude. All right, well, thanks again.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right, cheers. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. For more information or to contact Rob, please go to www.robsnowhite.com. This podcast is brought to you by Freestone Productions at freestoneproductions.com.